There comes a moment in every person's life when the world grows loud, distractions pull from every direction, and the mind feels stretched thin. Yet, in that very moment, there lies an extraordinary truth. The more you turn your attention inward, the stronger your mind becomes, sharper, clearer, and capable of shaping your destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reminder, quiet but powerful, of the astonishing force within you, a force that rarely announces itself, yet influences every decision, every step, and every outcome of your life. It is your mind, that remarkable instrument capable of shaping your world with a single dominant thought. And the truth is this: the more you focus on yourself, the stronger your mind grows. We live in an age of noise, constant, relentless noise. It tugs at the edges of our attention, pulling us away from our purpose. But the individual who learns to turn inward, who learns to guide his thoughts as a captain guides a ship through a storm, becomes a person of rare strength. For strength does not appear from the outside, it grows within, silently, steadily, like the roots of a great oak burrowing deeper into the earth. If you wish to improve your life, begin not with the world, but with the quiet corners of your own mind. Ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I becoming? What am I feeding my attention? For your mind, like a garden, will grow whatever you plant in it, be it weeds of worry or seeds of clarity. The strongest men and women in history did not become extraordinary by chasing the opinions of others. They became remarkable because they cultivated themselves. They understood a timeless principle, one I hope you will remember: your outer world is a mirror. It can only reflect the strength you build within. To strengthen your mind is to strengthen your life. And this begins with simple, deliberate actions. Spend a few minutes each morning in quiet thought. Let your mind settle. Ask yourself what kind of person you intend to be today. Read something that enriches you. Listen to something that elevates you. Practice removing the noise, the clutter, the idle comparison. For every moment you reclaim from distraction becomes a deposit into your future mastery. And do not be discouraged if progress feels slow. The oak does not grow in a day, yet every day it grows. So too will your mind. Every moment you choose focus over frenzy, purpose over passivity, and intention over impulse, you step closer to the life you truly desire. Self-focus is not, as many have mistakenly assumed, an act of selfishness. It is an act of alignment, an honest return to the center of one's own being. When a person chooses to focus inward, he is not retreating from the world. He is preparing himself to meet it with greater strength, clarity, and purpose. Most people spend their days scattering their attention like handfuls of sand thrown into the wind. They worry about opinions, chase after approval, and stretch themselves thin trying to satisfy expectations that were never truly theirs. Yet the individual who pauses long enough to ask, "What do I stand for? What do I want? Who am I becoming?" enters a territory of rare empowerment. For it is only when we understand ourselves that we can guide ourselves, and only when we guide ourselves that life begins to unfold in the direction of our choosing. Think of a great river. When it is wide, unfocused, and spread thin, it moves slowly and weakly. But narrow that river, give it direction, intention, and path, and it becomes powerful enough to carve canyons. So it is with the mind. When your attention is spread across the noise of the world, the mind weakens. When your attention is centered on yourself, the mind sharpens into an instrument of remarkable influence. Self-focus is the gathering of your mental waters into a single, powerful stream. It is the decision to stop living reactively and begin living deliberately. And consider this: every achievement humanity has ever admired began with a person who first turned inward. They listened to the quiet voice of their own conscience while the world shouted its doubts. They aligned their thoughts with the vision they held for themselves long before anyone else could see it. Alignment always precedes advancement. Before a plane takes flight, its instruments must be tuned. Before a ship sails, its course must be plotted. Before a person succeeds, their inner world must be brought into harmony with their deepest desires. Without this alignment, effort becomes scattered, progress inconsistent, and the mind restless. People often fear self-focus because they believe it isolates them, but the truth is quite the opposite. When a person understands himself, his strengths, his weaknesses, his values, his purpose, he interacts with the world from a place of stability. He is no longer swayed by comparison or threatened by the success of others. He becomes someone whose presence is steady, composed, and unmistakably strong. That strength originates from within, cultivated in moments of quiet reflection, deliberate thought, and honest self-inquiry. When you focus on yourself, you begin to notice the subtle habits of thought that either empower or limit you. You become aware of the beliefs you carried, some inherited, some absorbed, some never questioned. And in this awareness, a new kind of freedom emerges, The freedom to choose what stays and what must be discarded. No one can think for you. No one can grow for you. The shaping of your character is an inside job, one that requires your attention more than anyone else's approval. The moment you turn inward with intention, you step into the role you were always meant to play, the director of your own mind, the author of your own story, the architect of your own becoming. Your mind becomes stronger every time you choose discipline over distraction. Though this truth rarely announces itself with fanfare, it is a quiet victory, a subtle shift, much like the first rays of dawn that break long before the world fully wakes. Discipline is not a grand gesture, it is a simple choice made repeatedly, often in moments when no one is watching. Distraction, on the other hand, comes dressed in bright colors, offering quick comfort, easy escape, and the illusion of relief. But relief is not growth, and escape is not progress. The individual who learns to choose the steady flame of discipline over the flickering lights of distraction becomes a person of uncommon inner strength. Each time you direct your mind toward a chosen purpose, you reinforce your ability to guide yourself. You may not notice the change at first, for discipline compounds quietly. It works beneath the surface like roots strengthening beneath the soil. But over time, something remarkable occurs. Tasks that once felt difficult become manageable, then effortless. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming shrink to their proper size, and the mind, once easily scattered, grows centered, calm, and capable. This is how strength is built, not through sudden transformation, but through small, deliberate choices that accumulate into something powerful. The world today is saturated with distractions, each one vying for a piece of your attention. It is easier than ever to drift away from your own purpose, to let hours slip into the hands of things that do nothing for your future. And yet, in this very landscape, the person who chooses discipline stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. Such a person does not avoid temptation because it is absent. They rise above it because their direction is clear. Discipline turns your goals from distant wishes into reachable realities by anchoring your actions to your intentions. Consider the mind of a great craftsman. He does not become skilled by wishing for mastery. He becomes skilled by returning to his work day after day through moments of fatigue, doubt, and monotony. Each return strengthens his ability to focus, and each hour spent with intention deepens his relationship with his craft. So it is with anyone seeking strength of mind. You do not need to battle distraction with force. You simply need to choose, again and again, the thing that aligns with the person you intend to become. Every act of discipline is a message you send to yourself, a message that says you are capable, reliable, and worthy of your own commitment. With each choice, your self-respect grows. You begin to trust yourself more, and that trust becomes the bedrock of mental strength. For a strong mind is not merely intelligent, it is dependable. It shows up where it said it would. It follows through on its own words. It becomes a partner rather than an adversary. As discipline deepens, something extraordinary happens. Distractions lose their power. What once pulled you effortlessly no longer moves you. You begin to notice that the world has not changed, but you have. And that change, quiet and unwavering, becomes the source of a strength that can carry you farther than you ever imagined. What you feed your attention becomes the foundation of your character. And few truths in life are as quietly decisive as this one. Every day, from the moment you wake to the moment you rest, your mind is receiving impressions, absorbing ideas, and forming subtle patterns that influence who you are becoming. Most people do not realize the profound weight of this process. They treat their attention as something incidental, something to be spent lightly, yet it is, in fact, the currency of your becoming. Whatever you give your attention to, you give permission to shape you. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, those choices begin carving the contours of your future. If a person spends his days absorbing chaos, noise, and distractions, he should not be surprised when his mind becomes restless. If he immerses himself in complaint, negativity, or comparison, he will soon find these very qualities echoing through his own thoughts. Attention is a seed, and the harvest is inevitable. One cannot plant thorns and hope for roses. One cannot fill his mind with trivial matters and expect it to produce clarity, courage, or conviction. Now consider the opposite. When a person chooses to feed his attention with ideas that elevate him, with knowledge that expands him, with examples that inspire him, something remarkable begins to take shape within. His mind grows more ordered, more focused, more certain. His thoughts become guided by intention rather than impulse. His character deepens with qualities that are not manufactured but cultivated. He develops strength not because he forces it, but because he has fed his attention with the very things that strengthen. Think of a sculptor standing before a block of stone. Every strike of the chisel removes something, reveals something, shapes something. Your attention works much the same way. Each thought you dwell on, each idea you invite in, each influence you permit to remain becomes a stroke against the stone of your character. Over time, the form of your life begins to emerge, not because of sudden changes, but because of the consistent shaping power of your attention. What most people fail to understand is that attention is a choice. It is not stolen, it is surrendered. The world will offer you endless attractions, endless noise, endless distractions designed to pull your focus outward and scatter it across 1,000 unimportant things. But the individual who decides to be the guardian of his own attention becomes the master of his own fate. He is no longer a passive participant in his life. He becomes an active creator. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Every book you read, every conversation you entertain, every thought you linger on, these are the architects of your inner world, and your inner world, in time, becomes visible in your actions, your habits, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. A person cannot rise above the quality of what he consistently consumes. Feed your attention with depth, and you will develop depth. Feed it with excellence, and excellence will slowly make its home within you. Feed it with purpose, and purpose will guide your every step. Quiet time alone is the training ground of clarity and wisdom, though in our busy age it is often misunderstood or undervalued. Many believe that solitude is an absence, an empty space to be filled, a pause between the real parts of life. Yet solitude, when embraced intentionally, is not an absence at all. It is a presence of mind, of awareness, of inner order. It is in these quiet moments, free from the pull of the world, that a person begins to hear the subtle guidance that is drowned out by the noise of daily living. The mind, like a clear pool, reflects accurately only when the waters are still, and it is in stillness that a person begins to see himself as he truly is. If one were to observe the habits of the most thoughtful, composed, and effective individuals, he would find that each in his own way values solitude, not as an escape but as a discipline. They step away from the world not because they reject it, but because they wish to return to it with greater strength. Solitude is the workshop of the mind. It is the place where ideas are shaped, priorities examined, and direction restored. Without these quiet intervals, the mind becomes fogged by constant input, endlessly reacting yet rarely understanding. A person can become so entangled in activity that he forgets the purpose behind it, running harder while seeing less clearly. Within moments of quiet reflection, however, the mind begins to organize itself. Thoughts settle, worries lose their exaggerated shapes, desires become more honest. A person can finally ask himself, without interference, what truly matters to me? What demands my attention? What have I been avoiding? In solitude, excuses fall away, and the truth stands unobstructed. It is in these moments that clarity begins to form, not in flashes of brilliance, but in gentle realizations that accumulate into wisdom. Nature illustrates this beautifully. Consider the tree that grows tall and strong. Though its branches stretch outward, its roots grow in silence unseen beneath the surface. It is in these quiet depths that stability is created. Likewise, the human mind strengthens through its quiet roots, those unseen minutes spent in thought, in reflection, in honest assessment. Without them, a person may appear successful on the outside while remaining fragile within. But with them, he becomes steady, grounded, and capable of weathering whatever storms may arise. Some people fear solitude because in its quietness, they encounter their own thoughts. But this is precisely why solitude is so necessary. For how can a person hope to guide his life if he is unfamiliar with the workings of his own mind? Silence reveals what noise conceals. It brings to the surface the beliefs, assumptions, and patterns that have long influenced one's actions without being questioned. And in recognizing them, a person gains the power to change them. Over time, a curious transformation occurs. Solitude becomes not a withdrawal, but a source of renewal. Just a few minutes of intentional quiet can reset the mind, sharpen priorities, and restore the sense of direction that so easily fades amid the demands of daily life. Those who cultivate this practice walk through the world differently, calmer, clearer, more deliberate, because they carry within them the strength that only quiet reflection can produce. Your inner world must be ordered before your outer world can improve, for life flows from the inside out, never the other way around. Yet most people attempt to rearrange the external pieces of their existence without ever examining the internal landscape that shapes every choice they make. They change jobs, relationships, routines, and environments, hoping that a shift in circumstance will bring clarity or fulfillment. But the truth is simple and unwavering. No matter where a person goes, he brings himself along. And if his inner world is disordered, filled with unresolved conflict, scattered thoughts, and unexamined beliefs. His outer world will always reflect that confusion. The mind is the command center of one's life. It quietly directs every action, colors every perception, and influences every outcome. A cluttered mind produces a cluttered life, just as a calm and orderly mind produces a life marked by purpose and direction. One cannot expect peace while entertaining chaotic thoughts. One cannot expect progress while feeding doubt. And one cannot expect meaningful change while holding tightly to the very patterns that have prevented growth. Order begins internally, often in the smallest of ways, by organizing one's thoughts, clarifying one's values, and understanding one's desires. Think of a craftsman entering his workshop at the beginning of the day. If his tools are scattered, if his workspace is disordered, he wastes time searching, adjusting, compensating. But when everything is in its proper place, when each instrument is cared for, he works with a sense of ease and precision. The mind operates in much the same manner. When your thoughts are scattered, your actions follow suit. When your beliefs are contradictory, your decisions become uncertain. But when you take the time to bring internal order, by deciding what matters, by discarding mental clutter, by aligning your intentions with your actions, you begin to move through life with clarity and quiet confidence. Many people underestimate the influence of their inner dialogue. They allow fear, worry, or old memories to shape the structure of their days without realizing the cost. Yet the moment a person pauses long enough to observe his thoughts, he discovers that he holds the power to reorganize them. Internal order is not achieved through force, but through awareness and intention. You begin to see which thoughts strengthen you and which weaken you. You begin to recognize which habits have quietly guided your behavior and whether they still serve you. And as this awareness deepens, the inner world gradually shifts into alignment. Once that alignment begins, changes in the outer world follow naturally, effortlessly. Opportunities become clearer because the mind is no longer clouded. Relationships improve because you approach them with steadiness rather than reaction. Decisions become easier because your values are no longer buried beneath mental noise. Life takes on a sense of coherence when the mind is in order. The storms of circumstance may still come, but they do not shake you in the same way, for your roots are deeper, your vision clearer, and your actions more deliberate. Most people try to build a beautiful house on an unstable foundation. But when your inner world is strengthened and ordered, you find that everything you build upon it becomes more secure, more meaningful, and more aligned with the life you truly desire. You cannot lead others well until you can direct yourself, for leadership is not a title, a position, or a loud voice. It is, at its core, a demonstration of inner mastery. A person cannot give what he does not possess. He cannot inspire discipline if he does not practice it. He cannot offer clarity if his own mind is clouded, and he cannot guide others toward higher ground if he has never walked that path himself. Every effective leader throughout history, whether known or unknown, shared a common foundation. They first learned to govern their own thoughts, their own emotions, their own habits. Only then did their influence extend outward with power and authenticity. Many individuals mistakenly believe that leadership begins with controlling external circumstances or directing other people. But all real leadership begins with self-direction. It begins with learning to command one's attention rather than handing it over to distraction, learning to manage one's emotions rather than being swept away by them, learning to choose intentional action rather than impulsive reaction. The person who seeks to lead without first mastering himself is like a sailor trying to steer a ship whose sails he has never learned to raise. His influence will always drift with the winds of circumstance. When a person learns to direct himself, something extraordinary happens. People naturally begin to follow. They sense steadiness where others show hesitation. They see conviction where others display uncertainty. They feel calm where others transmit chaos. This kind of influence cannot be faked. It cannot be manufactured. It radiates from within, the way a lamp naturally illuminates a darkened room. People are drawn to those who have clearly done the inner work, who carry themselves with quiet confidence, who walk with purpose rather than getting lost in every passing opinion. Leadership, then, is not pursued. It is revealed through the disciplined shaping of character. Self-direction requires honesty. It demands that a person look inward and face the truth about his habits, strengths, weaknesses, and tendencies. It requires discipline that is not enforced by others but chosen willingly. Most importantly, it requires vision, a mental picture of the person you are striving to become. Without vision, self-direction becomes impossible, for the mind has no lighthouse toward which to steer. But with vision, each decision becomes clearer, each action gains meaning, and each step brings you closer to the life you want to lead. Only when you have learned to guide your own life with intention can you hope to influence the lives of others. You become a living example of what is possible through discipline, clarity, and commitment, and people follow examples far more readily than they follow orders. They follow someone who shows through the quiet authority of his actions that he has discovered a direction worth moving toward. In this way, leadership becomes not an act of control but an act of alignment, where the inner world leads the outer one, and where a person's influence expands naturally from the strength he has cultivated within himself. Your thoughts are the architects of your future, constantly drafting, shaping, and constructing the life you will eventually live. Most people never pause long enough to realize the extraordinary creative power they wield each day through the nature of their thinking. They move from moment to moment, reacting rather than directing, unaware that every reaction is a small brick laid in the foundation of their destiny. But the person who understands the influence of thought begins to look inward with greater seriousness. He becomes aware that his mind is not merely a place where random ideas pass through. It is a workshop where the blueprint of his future is quietly designed. Every great accomplishment first existed as a thought. Every achievement, every invention, every triumph began as a small idea held in the privacy of one's mind. Before it took shape in reality, it took shape within. And so it is with your life. Your mind is constantly constructing what your future will resemble. If you allow discouragement, fear, or doubt to occupy your thinking, you are unwittingly designing a life built upon those very materials. But if you cultivate thoughts of courage, clarity, and purpose, you set in motion a future that aligns with those qualities. Thought is the starting point of all progress and all decline. It is the hidden architect behind every visible result. A person's thoughts determine not only his direction but his disposition. Two individuals may stand in the same circumstance, yet one sees opportunity while the other sees defeat. The difference lies not in the world but in their minds. The mind interprets labels and defines experience. It determines whether you will rise with the challenge or shrink beneath it. That is why a strong mind is not built through chance, but through deliberate thinking that is chosen, refined, and elevated with purpose. When you begin to think intentionally, you gain the remarkable ability to reshape your life from the inside out. You start noticing patterns that previously operated without your awareness. You catch the quiet whispers of doubt before they take root. You replace habitual negativity with thoughts that strengthen rather than weaken. You become, in a sense, the guardian of your own mental doorway, choosing carefully what is allowed to enter. Over time, this vigilance creates something powerful, a mind aligned with your aspirations rather than your fears. It is important to remember that thoughts are not idle. They do not pass through the mind without leaving an impression. They influence your mood, your behavior, your choices, and ultimately your results. A repeated thought becomes a belief becomes a habit shapes character, and character determines destiny. All of this begins with the quiet activity taking place in the privacy of your mind each day. The people who accomplish the most in life are not necessarily the strongest, the most talented, or the most fortunate. They are those who have learned to think in ways that support their success. They have disciplined their minds to choose thoughts that strengthen their resolve rather than weaken it. Thoughts that encourage movement rather than stagnation. Thoughts that elevate rather than diminish. They understand that every thought is a contribution to the future they are building, and so they think with purpose, clarity, and direction. In this way, your thoughts become the silent architects working behind the scenes, constructing a life that reflects the quality and intention of your inner world. Daily habits of reflection create long-term transformations, though the changes they produce rarely make headlines or announce themselves with sudden brilliance. Instead, they work quietly, like a gentle stream that shapes stone over time. A single moment of reflection may appear insignificant, yet repeated consistently, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in personal development. Reflection is the practice of turning the mind inward, examining one's thoughts, actions, and intentions with honesty, curiosity, and patience. It is a discipline that sharpens awareness, strengthens judgment, and reveals the subtle patterns that guide the course of one's life. A person who reflects daily gains something invaluable: perspective. In the noise of daily living, it is easy to become tangled in small frustrations, fleeting emotions, or unimportant concerns. But when you take a few minutes each day to look back on your actions, your decisions, and your reactions, you begin to see your life through a wider lens. You begin to recognize what truly matters and what does not. You notice where you have acted out of fear rather than purpose, where you have drifted instead of directed, where you have reacted instead of chosen. This awareness is the catalyst for change, for one cannot correct what one does not see. Reflection also helps a person identify the quiet victories that might otherwise go unnoticed. Perhaps you responded with patience when you once would have reacted with frustration. Perhaps you made a small but meaningful choice aligned with your long-term goals. Perhaps you resisted a distraction or followed through on a commitment. These are not dramatic moments, yet they are the building blocks of character. Reflection allows you to notice them, appreciate them, and reinforce them. Over time, these small, consistent improvements accumulate into significant transformation. Just as a pilot adjusts his course by checking his instruments, each moment of reflection helps you adjust the path of your life. Without these check-ins, it is easy to drift far from your intended direction without realizing it. But with daily reflection, you remain aligned. You begin to identify the areas that require more effort, the habits that must be strengthened, and the beliefs that must be released. You develop an inner guidance system that grows more accurate with time, helping you navigate life with clarity rather than confusion. Reflection also deepens your relationship with yourself. In a world that constantly pulls attention outward, taking time to sit quietly with your own thoughts allows you to hear your inner voice more clearly. You begin to understand what energizes you and what drains you, what excites your spirit and what burdens your mind. You develop the ability to recognize unhealthy patterns before they take root, and you cultivate the wisdom to choose better paths. This inner understanding becomes a source of confidence, for you can trust yourself more fully when you truly know yourself. It is through the daily practice of reflection that a person becomes intentional rather than reactive, deliberate rather than distracted, purposeful rather than passive. It is not the length of reflection that matters, but the consistency. A few honest minutes each day have the power to reshape habits, redirect choices, and refine character. Over months and years, this simple discipline becomes a quiet architect of transformation, shaping a life that reflects thoughtfulness, clarity, and steady self-improvement. The mind grows stronger when challenged with purpose, intention, and patience. Though many fail to recognize the quiet power inherent in this process, life often presents itself with trials, obstacles, and pressures that seem inconvenient or unfair. Yet it is precisely in these moments of challenge that the mind finds its opportunity to expand, to deepen, and to sharpen. Strength is not forged in comfort or ease, it is cultivated in the deliberate engagement with difficulty, in the conscious choice to meet circumstances with focus rather than frustration. When a person embraces challenge as a teacher rather than an adversary, the mind grows resilient, capable, and remarkably versatile. Purpose is the compass that directs every challenge into a lesson rather than a setback. Without purpose, difficulties appear random, chaotic, and discouraging. But with purpose, every obstacle can be examined, understood, and approached strategically. The person with a clear why behind his efforts discovers that the mind can withstand far more than he previously imagined. Purpose fuels attention, and attention, focused consistently, produces mastery. When a person knows the direction in which he wishes to move, every experience, whether smooth or turbulent, contributes to the fortification of his mental faculties. Intention acts as the architect of the mind's response. It is not enough to merely encounter challenges. The manner in which a person engages them determines whether strength is gained or squandered. To approach life haphazardly without thought or strategy is to invite frustration and stagnation. But to approach life intentionally, to analyze each obstacle, to consider each reaction carefully, is to cultivate an inner discipline that grows stronger with repetition. Intention shapes habits, and habits shape character. Each deliberate action reinforces the mind's capacity to focus, reason, and act decisively in the face of complexity. Patience is the glue that binds purpose and intention into lasting mental strength. The human mind is not transformed overnight, nor does wisdom arrive fully formed. It develops gradually, like a tree growing slowly but steadily toward the sun. Impatience leads to frustration, rash decisions, and scattered effort. But patience allows the mind to absorb lessons, integrate experience, and emerge stronger with each challenge. Those who persist, who continue to apply purpose and intention even when results are slow to appear, discover that strength accumulates quietly, steadily, and irrevocably. Every challenge faced with purpose, intention, and patience acts as a form of mental exercise. Just as muscles grow stronger when consistently stressed and rested, the mind grows more capable when consistently engaged and reflected upon. Challenges reveal weaknesses, provide opportunities for improvement, and reward perseverance with insights that cannot be gained through comfort alone. Over time, a person discovers that he is no longer as easily shaken by difficulties, no longer as easily distracted by trivial matters, and increasingly able to maintain focus on what truly matters. It is through this process that extraordinary people develop extraordinary minds. They do not avoid difficulty, nor do they rely on external validation to gauge progress. Instead, they meet each challenge with awareness, they act with intention, and they trust the slow accumulation of effort over time. The stronger mind emerges not because circumstances were easy, but because the individual learned to meet life with purpose, discipline, and enduring patience. Focusing on yourself allows you to rise above noise, fear, and comparison, though most people fail to grasp the quiet but profound power of this practice. In a world that constantly demands attention, where opinions clamor and distractions proliferate, the mind can easily become fragmented. People spend countless hours measuring themselves against others, worrying about approval, and reacting to external circumstances that they cannot control. Yet the individual who chooses to direct his attention inward discovers a freedom and strength that no external force can shake. By focusing on yourself, you begin to cultivate a life guided by your own values, your own standards, and your own purpose. Noise surrounds us on every side, not only the literal noise of the world, but the mental noise of worry, doubt, and endless comparison. Most people allow these distractions to dictate their choices, to disrupt their focus, and to undermine their confidence. But when a person turns his attention inward, he begins to separate signal from static. He learns to listen to his own voice, to trust his own judgment, and to act from clarity rather than confusion. This act of self-focus is not selfish, it is a conscious decision to prioritize what matters most: your thoughts, your habits, and your vision for your life. Fear, too, loses its power when attention is properly directed. Most fear arises from uncertainty or the imagined judgments of others. It thrives when the mind is scattered, when attention is pulled outward in countless directions. But a person who concentrates on himself, who understands his own capabilities and limitations, is no longer governed by fear. He is prepared to take thoughtful risks because he has strengthened the mental muscles necessary to navigate adversity. The focused mind does not eliminate fear, but it places fear in its proper context, allowing the individual to act with courage and conviction. Comparison is perhaps the most insidious distraction of all. When a person constantly measures himself against the achievements, appearance, or opinions of others, he forfeits his own sense of direction and diminishes his own potential. Yet focusing on yourself, on your growth, your goals, and your daily improvement renders comparison irrelevant. Your progress becomes measured by your own standards, not someone else's. Every step forward is a reflection of your discipline, your persistence, and your intention. In doing so, you cultivate a quiet confidence that does not demand recognition, approval, or validation from the outside world. When you commit to focusing on yourself, you begin to construct a mental environment that is orderly, resilient, and oriented toward growth. Thoughts are directed with care, habits are refined with purpose, and actions align with long-term goals rather than fleeting impulses. The mind becomes a sanctuary rather than a battlefield, a place where clarity prevails over chaos, and where deliberate effort replaces reaction. Over time, this inner cultivation produces results that are visible in the outer world, yet the source of that success is always internal. Strength, direction, and peace all flow from the focused attention you give to yourself. You see, the mind strengthens the moment it is directed, the moment it is given a clear destination, and the moment you decide, fully and without hesitation, that your life is worth the discipline it demands. So here is your call to action, spoken with the same conviction that transformed countless lives throughout history. Begin today. Not tomorrow, not someday, today. Choose one small act of personal focus. Read for 10 minutes. Sit in silence. Write your goals. Shape your thoughts. Redirect your attention. And watch as your mind grows stronger, clearer, and more capable than you ever imagined. This is your moment, and your mind, your greatest ally, is ready.